What is the worst or best favor a friend has ever asked you for? To unbury his boat, no other information was given. I said yes, and turns out he thought that to borrow me truck to get the cheese. He drives a Tahoe. I have no clue how much cheese he was getting. Neighbor asked if they could put a dead rat in our bin because they didn't want to put it in theirs. Back in the old days, had a paranoid friend pay me good money to rent out and dupe. His logic: if he ever became famous, he didn't want a record of him renting out porn. Postscript: he never became famous. I became friends with a female coworker as I was dating a gay who was friends with her boyfriend. She had this weird thing about not pooping around him, to the point when they eventually did long distance, we planned a trip together and shared a hotel room with all four of us. While her and I were getting ready to go out, she pulled me aside and told me she asked me to stay in the bathroom with her while she took a shit, so it would just seem like we were. I kid you not. That shit stank so bad that I'm 100 sure the guy smelled it in the room. Rip. A guy I was dating for 2 months asked me to have sex with one of his friends so we could get. My date worked at Disneyland. He wanted to take me into the park, but he didn't want to use one of his free tickets that he was. So he literally asked me to have sex with a coworker of his to get one of his tickets. It didn't work out between us. Edit: since so many people are asking, yes, I bonked his coworker for the park hopper tickets. The relationship was very unsteady before this, and we broke up within the weeks after. The coworker was very hot though, so I don't feel bad. If he wasn't, I wouldn't have done it. I don't usually ask for anything, but I was hungry while I was at work. I asked my friend to go get me food that me mom prepared at me parents' home. He said sure and left. My friend was visiting me at work, and I took the chance to ask him to get me a plate. He came back and brought me a dish of his own. He cooked a bacon, grilled cheese sandwich for me. This is not the weirdest experience that I've had, but it's his. I asked him, why did you get the food that me mother made at me parents' place? He measured me and thought I asked him to make me food. Best laugh that we had. Coworker asked me to help him bury a body. Turns out his grandfather was to be buried on their farm, and I was the only guy he knew who came. Even weirder, his grandfather wasn't dead yet, and not only was he walking around, he died like 5 days later. I was friends with a girl through junior high and high school. We called one another best friends, but in truth, she was just a shitty person and we drifted apart as you do after we graduated, as I went to college and she made other choices. One day out of the blue, she called me and invited me to meet her for lunch to catch up and blah blah. As we were eating lunch, she tells me a fun story about an awesome party I refused to get involved and told her while I wouldn't volunteer any information. She wasn't happy with me, but no officials ever came to me with questions. She and I had even less to do with one another after that. Oh, and I paid for lunch. My cousin had locked his keys in his car, and it would cost too much to get someone to open. So he asked me to break into his car and steal his keys because the insurance of getting a win. One of my roommates in college begged me to take a picture of my bare back for an art project she was. Keep in mind, she was not an art student, nor in an art class, nor. I was uncomfortable with it, but eventually agreed to do it. She showed me the final work, and she had taken several pictures of people's backs, made them. I didn't really get it, but she was very happy with herself. Walked in on me boss in the men's room. He pleaded with me to help detach his sack from his zipper. I got him free. So much. Blood. We never spoke of it again. My best friend is a huge guy. He's 6'9" and 250 pounds, but he's incredibly scared of hosts. Every time he has to go in his basement, he calls me to come to his house. He lives alone in Tahoe. We're in our 20s, and as funny as I think it is, every time he calls me to come with him, you would never think such a huge man would be so deathly scared to go in his basement alone, but worst, when me best friend from high school moved out of his parents' house. He did so. He moved out on the sleigh while they were at work and asked me to help him. When they came home sooner than expected, he asked me to go down there and make up a lay. Well, I did it, but I can't say I feel good about it. Weirdest, my brother, who had grown estranged from me for well over a decade, called me up. I gave him a fake address. Shitty thing to do, but we reboo, not on good terms. Lol. I walked past me brother at somebody's house and he leans over and says, "Gently step." Then I see this little rubber pig laying in the dirt, so I gently stepped on it like he said, and it made this so he chuckled and kept walking. Not a friend, but a kid back in high school asked if he could borrow my phone to watch. I told him no, obviously, and he said, "Come on, man, it's not like him going to jack off." I asked why he did use his own phone, and he said because it might get taken away, so you're gonna get mine. Also, why the fuck would I want to get involved? He set fire to an apartment building a few weeks later. A kid I went to elementary school with asked me later in high school to punch his pregnant girlfriend. Caught me so off guard. A friend of mine had moved and money was tight, so he did have internet at his place for. He asked me to download some porn for him. I did. A neighbor asked to borrow a bed until her kids were grown. Her oldest was 10.
Not a friend, but my brother. He wears a cowboy hat faithfully every day. He went on a date with this girl and she asked him why he always wears the hat. Instead of just saying "I like to wear it," he told her this weird lie that he was from Texas. We are from North Carolina, and he said that our parents shipped him off to Texas when he was born to be raised by our uncle, who also lives in NC, and that my other two brothers and I stayed in NC to be raised by our parents. He said he got sent back to NC in high school and he wears the hat to show off his Texan pride. He asked not only me but my dad and brothers to back up this story for him when we met her. He started the request by sitting us all down and asking, "Would you lie for me?" and then told us that story. Now we call him the Proud Texan as a joke. He never told that girl the truth, he just broke up with her because he knew we would not go along with that crazy story he made up for no reason to this poor girl.
Bring a soldering iron to school so we can turn me inhaler into a vape in the auditorium. A good friend of mine asked me to take his dog to the vet to be put down. He couldn't do it because it was too stressful on him. He wanted to be there for his wife and kids but couldn't do it himself. I took his dog for him and would do it again. I understand how hard it can be for someone. My friend needed help getting sand for some project. Sure, no problem. I get to his house and we leave in his ratty-ass late 80s Suburban. I'm thinking we're getting bags of sand at Home Depot or something. Nope, he drives us to a giant mountain of sand down by the lake that's used as ballast for freighters. But he doesn't have any buckets, so we just shovel it into the back of the Suburban. Of note, the passenger window was stuck down, which was usually fine as it was but in this instance it just turned the truck into a sandstorm the whole ride home. The whole thing was an exercise in stupidity. To go downstairs to the lower level of a church and take a picture of her daughter in her coffin. I know it's not the worst thing, but it freaked me out. Kind of came out of nowhere. Thank goodness for friend Ro, who heard the request, turned around and said I'll do it. I had a friend in high school, while spending the night with me, get a tampon. I hear a very nervous, I'm a little scared. Will you help me get it out? Fortunately, they managed to get it unstuck before I was ready to help. I had me sleeves rolled up and hands washed when I was told I was needed. A sigh of relief for the both of us. We're still best friends, 10 years and counting. Guy I hung out with in me late teens always asked for things. If I had beer, he wanted some beer. If I had a burger, he wanted the freeze. I had a girl over once, blind date kind of, and he asked if we could He asked me to share our girl. We weren't like swinger friends or anything. He was just trying to borrow some sex. Called me up randomly and asked if I wanted to tote his wife with him. Specifically, both dongs in the front door. I am married with kids. Sam married with disease. Called at home asking me to reach him on a well-hidden countryside road. Told me driving a scooter while holding a shovel isn't easy. Also, I was expecting to help brew. The idiot just drove over a chinchilla. A fucking chinchilla. I still can't figure where did it came from. When I was in the Marines, had someone from high school reach out to catch up. After some chatting, he wanted a copy of my ribbon bar. Weird as hell. I could only think they wanted to do some stolen valor shit or lead to some girl they were never a very good to donate me sperm. To her. An ex. No joke.